Hello and welcome to this episode of the interview. I'm Shubham Thakur, and today it's my immense privilege and pleasure to welcome on the show none other than Mr. S.Y.Quraishi, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. His latest version of an English book called Undocumented Wonder, The Making of Great Indian Election, is out by Hindi called लोकतंत्र के उत्सव की कहानियाँ. अनकही कहानियाँ. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Sir, as per section 33 of the Representation of the People Act, a person or a candidate fighting election is allowed to contest election from maximum number of 2 constituencies. In case he wins from both the constituencies, he has to vacate one of the constituencies within 10 days. And as a result of that, by-election is forced. What do you think about this?
Well, actually, some time ago, there was no limit at all, and people used to contest from more than 2 also. And it was on the recommendation of Election Commission that it was reduced to 2 constituencies. We have been opposing it, although I feel that it's only the top leaders of the country whose stakes are extremely high. So they who contest from 2 constituencies is not a norm. 3-4 constituencies, surely it causes a by-election, surely it means some trouble for the voters. They have to come back, and organization, the election commission, ideally there should be only 1 constituency, but imagine Mr. Modi contesting from 1, or Sonia Gandhi contesting from 1 and losing. The stakes are rather high. So that's why only the top leaders now opt to contest from 2 constituencies. So in which case maybe we have to see the balance, political balance, whether just the inconvenience of conducting an election or the cost is the answer, is the main consideration. One via media that we have suggested that in case you don't want to stop the second election, the 2 contests, at least impose a cost, that when you resign from 1 for the second holding the by-election, give us X amount of money, 20 lakh, 30 lakhs, whatever, 1 crore, something can be fixed to compensate for that.
Sir, as per the current law which is operating in this country, a person convicted, one who is fighting election, if he is convicted, he can be put behind bars for a maximum imprisonment of 6 years. Do you think there should be a lifetime ban for convicted politicians?
No, it's not going behind the bar for 10 years. It depends on the conviction. On conviction, every person is disqualified from contesting election for 6 years.
Yes.
Is being behind the bar maybe 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, that is different. And this disqualification begins when he has completed the sentence. So suppose the sentence was for 5 years, so first he or she is in jail, and then another 6 years of disqualification, they cannot contest. So that is the norm. The Election Commission has endorsed the proposal that there should be lifetime ban. That will be an ideal situation. But I think if somebody has been out of the election arena for 10 years or 15 years, that's what people forget. So maybe a lifetime ban may be too harsh, because every offence for which there may be conviction. Suppose there is a traffic accident, somebody gets killed, there was no bad intention, but there is jail, there will be conviction, there will be jail. To convict such a person for a lifetime, to debar for a lifetime, maybe a bit too harsh. If we at least enforce what we already have. The bigger problem is they not getting convicted at all. The case continuing for 5, 10, 20 years. The case goes on, and in that period they continue to contest election because they have not been convicted. So that is more of a serious problem for Election Commission.
So don't you think that BJP, by its amendment to Finance Bill 2017, has in the name of transparency made it easy for parties to get anonymous fund? It has removed caps. I mean, you cannot disclose the name of the person or the donor who is donating money to you.
Yes, you are right. There are 2 issues of concern there. Although in his budget speech, Finance Minister started very well.
Yeah.
He says for the last 70 years we have been trying to check use of money power in elections, and we have failed. And without control of money power and transparency of political finance, free and fair elections are not possible. So transparency is a promise which he held in his opening statement. But later on, the two things which the budget did have undone this promise. Number one, that earlier there was a cap of 7.5% on a company. They could donate only 7.5% of their last 3 years' profit. Now that limit has been removed altogether, which means the entire profit of a company can come to a political party, which is a very serious thing, because that means parties will be run by corporates now. Some companies will exist only to run politics of the country. So it's very dangerous. That limit had a good logic.
So even funds coming in from the foreigners or foreign countries is not supposed to be disclosed. I mean, even they cannot disclose.
That is the other point.
Yeah.
That one is the limit. The other is no disclosure. Now, electoral bonds is what he has suggested. That will surely take care of cash transaction. But present position is that any donation of more than 20,000 was reported to the Election Commission. At least we know all the donors who have donated more than 20,000. But after the introduction of electoral bonds, we would not know anything. Who has donated to which party, that will not be known, and that transparency will go, which is very bad, which is not acceptable.
So am I right in understanding you that the center talks something else, but the action is something else?
But well, we can't generalize, but in this case, surely there is the inconsistency. Although the finance minister in his speech, concluding speech in Lok Sabha, when there was a debate on this, in his reply, he did say that people are criticizing, but nobody is articulating the alternative and solutions. So he said he is open to suggestions, and he invited suggestions, and I'm sure parties who are criticizing and others must have written to him, because the scheme is yet to be formulated. So there is a possibility when the scheme is formulated, he takes care of this concern.
So do you think last year Election Commission made any mistake while banning exit polls and not opinion polls? What's your opinion on that?
Well, exit polls are banned not by the Election Commission but by the Act of Parliament. From 2008 or so, Parliament decided that there will be a ban on exit polls. Actually, all political parties wanted ban on exit and opinion polls both.
Both, yeah.
All of them came to the Election Commission and demanded that they should be banned. Accordingly, we proposed that the ban should be introduced in the Act. To our surprise, when they passed the Act, only exit polls were banned and not the opinion polls. And immediately thereafter, the political parties came back to us complaining again. I said, look, you had the opportunity, you demanded, we supported, but then you let yourself down, let us down by leaving out opinion polls. Why we are opposed to opinion polls and exit polls? Because of the phenomenon of paid news. It's a very sad thing which has happened to the media, that if you pay the money, they even write false news and editorial, and they try to...
But sir, don't you think it is also infringing upon the right to freedom of speech and expression?
No, freedom of speech and expression, sure, but no freedom of misinformation and disinformation and cheating and fraud and vitiating the election process by lies and untruths. That is what it implies. There are Supreme Court judgments. There is the Press Council, which talks about this concern that disinformation is not your fundamental right. While take money and cheat, give people wrong information, give a wrong poll result that so and so is winning when everybody knows that he is losing. And in fact, there was a sting operation in one TV channel. For 5 hours, I was glued to the TV, and there 11 poll research agencies, the way they were disclosing their modus operandi because they didn't want to lose business, it was really shocking and painful. So that is the reality. Because of the paid news, we want ban, because we don't trust the media on these polls. If they were honest, if there was some regulation, independent regulation, then they are fine, because all research is good. We conduct opinion polls, Election Commission. Every state we do a knowledge, attitude, behavior and practice survey. so that we would want to know why people don't vote, so that we can modify our voter education messages, and what are the facilities which will help them to come out in larger numbers. So that feedback is important, but we do it for an honest purpose, not to disinform people.
So, Honorable Supreme Court of India, while interpreting the pronoun his, used in Section 123(3) of the Representation of the People Act, said that seeking votes on the religious basis is a corrupt act. What do you think about this, and do you think religious figures should be banned from contesting elections?
Well, religious. Let me first answer the first question. What Supreme Court said is nothing new.
Yeah.
There are ample laws in the Model Code and Representation of People Act and in the Indian Penal Code that you cannot appeal to voters in the name of religion and caste and creed, and you cannot use a place of worship for campaigning. It's already there, but it was very good that the Supreme Court reminded the political system that it has to be followed very, very strictly. So therefore, Supreme Court judgment is most welcome. The other, whether the religious leaders should be banned from contesting, is a matter of debate, because obviously religious leader contests. His language, his discourse, his entire campaign is around religion only. So that possibility needs to be debated.
So, do you personally think they should be banned?
Well, if you see the conduct of some of them, then probably they should be banned, because they bring in religion into election and politics then.
So, do you think India should change from first past the post system of election to the representational system, proportional representational system of election, as it is in Australia, Argentina, and other countries? That will reflect the real views of the public.
In my two books which you mentioned, An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, when I wrote it the first time, I described all the electoral systems, first past the post system, its benefits and its problems, proportional representation, the kind of proportional representation systems that we have around the world, and its pros and cons. And I recommended that first past the post system should continue because it has stood the test of time. It is the simplest, and it is followed in most countries, including UK, from where we borrowed. But after the 2014 election, when I was writing another chapter for the same book, for the third edition of the book, I had to change my mind. Why? Because we saw in UP, for instance, BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, got 20% votes and 0 seat.
Yeah.
Now 20% vote share and 0 seat is unfair to the 20% voters. So obviously that highlights the defect of the system. And it's not just that in India that we are now talking about it. All over the world this debate goes on, which is why we have so many systems. Even in UK about 8-9 years ago, there was a referendum whether the 300-year-old system should be changed and they should go to a proportional representation. The referendum failed because there was very low turnout and people could not understand what exactly was the issue. They are thinking of holding the referendum once again. So the fact that the debate is going on even in the parent organization, which is the UK, I think there is a time for us to look at proportional representation. There are several models, and I recommend a mixed system of PR, which is followed in Germany, with some further adaptation
with some modification
to make it simpler for India.
So has the parliamentary system of governance that we borrowed from Britishers lost the utility of the time, and should we change ourselves to the presidential system of
I don't think so. That debate has been going on for a long time. There are pros and cons, but for a country as diverse as India, where federalism is extremely important, the parliamentary system serves federal interests much better, and this system has worked very well all these years. I personally feel that parliamentary system is most suitable for India.
So, do you think India is ready for simultaneous election? What's your view on that?
Well, I have written a number of times on this, and my conclusion is that it's very desirable but not possible. constitutionally, legally, and also for reasons of federalism.
But the Election Commission has recently said we are ready for 2019 election.
Yeah, because Election Commission, what it means is that logistically it is no problem.
Okay.
But Election Commission has to managing a simultaneous election. Election Commission has no problem. In fact, it is more convenient.
Yeah.
So instead of going to conduct polls every time in 5 years, you do it once and go home and relax. Therefore, all the Election Commission meant was that logistical consideration. But the other reasons for and against, they have to be debated. Now, the reasons which Prime Minister had given, and in fact, even Prime Minister was not the first to flag it.
Yeah.
He only flagged this issue which had been voiced for a long time. I remember Mr. L.K. Advani talking about it, writing about it in his blog in 2010. At that time also there was a debate. The BJP, the manifesto in 2014 had this, and then Prime Minister flagged it, and he mentioned that a lot of money is spent. The election is costly. Second, that there is dislocation of normal work because the entire machinery, administrative and political, gets busy in election. Very good point, both of them. There is a third and fourth which he did not mention, but I would like to add. Third, that the election is now notorious for money power. Every time there is election, you spend crores of rupees, black money, illegal, and that becomes the root cause of corruption in the country thereafter. Because if you spend crores, you have to earn crores, and then once you come to power, you start collecting because you have to refund that money. So that is the third problem. Fourth is because close to the election, you will notice very divisive and hate politics in action. You know, vote bank politics, and then communalism, casteism at the peak. So we are in that mode. You will notice that after the election, everything subsides, things become normal. So if we are in the election mode all the time, we are in communal and caste mode all the time. So these are four good reasons that simultaneous election will be good. But the other side is people love frequent elections because that is the only power that they have. Now, same MLA and MP, once after the election, many people complain that he will not show his face for the next 5 years. He just disappears. So at least if there are repeated elections, you get to see his face. So it increases their accountability. So that is, in fact, there was one slogan which I heard from a schoolgirl from Bihar or Chhattisgarh. वो said कि जब चुनाव आता है, गरीब के पेट में पुलाव आता है. The fact that money is spent now in the last general election, 30,000 crore expenditure is the
there's also a
estimate.
joke
Now these 30,000 crores are spent on who? The people. You know, the people get jobs and all kinds of, painters and writers and sloganeers and food stalls and all kinds of people get work.
So do you think politicians...
What is the joke?
So there's a joke going on that चुनाव आ गया अब पुलाव आएगा.
Why same thing? Is the same thing?
Exactly. So do you think politicians invest money in fighting election? The word is invest and not spend.
Yes, in fact, you are right. That's a good statement. Because politics has become the most lucrative business. So once you come to power, then there is no limit to the money that you make. As we see from experience, of course, it is illegal, but that is what is happening. Which is why, although there is a legal limit on expenditure for MLA, it is 28 lakhs, and for MP, Lok Sabha, it is 70 lakhs. But we know anecdotally that 5, 10, 20, 30 crores are spent. Even on the panchayat election, crores are spent. Why? Surely there is some benefit that they see when they come to power.
So in your tenure as Chief Election Commissioner of India, did you want to bring about any kind of reform, or did you want to do something which you could not do in your tenure?
There are both things. We wanted reform, the reform which had been pending for a long time, and we reiterated them. And then there was some reforms which, as we come across a good idea, we kept on writing to the government to introduce these reforms. That we did. But there were, the other thing is anything new which you could do. Now reforms do not necessarily have to come through Parliament. Some may require constitutional amendment, some require legal law amendment. These two will come from Parliament. Some can come from executive order, of the law ministry, of the government through the law ministry. But there are many which are procedural and processes which election commission can do itself, where we don't have to ask anybody, except for funds maybe. So there, of course, we were very bold and liberal. Many good ideas. We did 4 or 5 new things, for instance. Now, voter education was started by me because I realized that turnout in many places is extremely low. So we were concerned. Although some people were critical, they said educating voters is not your job is only to conduct elections. I said, no, nothing doing. If there is low turnout, the legitimacy of the elected people is questioned. You become an MP with only 10% vote, which means 90% have not voted for you. So are you a legitimate representative of that area? No. But legally, your election is fair. Yeah. So therefore, we used to get this dangerous proposal that there should be compulsory voting, which we were opposed to. Compulsion and democracy don't go together.
Are you saying there should not be compulsory voting?
Yes, no, yeah, not at all. I'm totally opposed to this because compulsion and democracy don't go together. Your right to vote includes your right not to vote. Yeah. How can you make it compulsory? In fact, the famous Nota judgment has raised your right not to vote to the status of a fundamental right. Right to vote was not a fundamental right. No, and many judgments said that it is not a fundamental right. This is the first judgment which elevates your right not to vote as a fundamental right. In such a situation, to make it compulsory will be the spirit of the Constitution. Second, is not even practical. Now, if you do not vote for any reason, after there are millions of poor people, daily wages, and they don't get leave. So government servants get leave, and we can force private sector to give leave. But a rickshawala, laborer, daily wager, he doesn't get leave, and if he stays at home that day, his children will go hungry. Now you start imposing compulsory voting and you issue a notice. Now we are a civilized society. If you do not vote, you are in violation of law, and for that you will be punished. And if that punishment, even if that punishment is just a token 1 rupee fine, we have to follow due process of law, which is issuing you a notice. A legal notice coming to you, immediately you will run to a lawyer and whom you can't afford. So the last general election, about 30 crore people did not vote. So 30 crore court cases will get started. It's a court case. Right. Therefore, it is easier said than done. And when we talk of, let's say, Australia and Singapore, they are very small countries. Australia is of the size of Haryana. We added 4 Australias between 2009 and 14 between 2 elections. Singapore is of the size of Karol Bagh. Now you can't learn from such small countries.
So, am I right in understanding or knowing that Election Commission of India, whichever the reform or whatever the rules and regulations, as per the requirement of the time, wants to execute, has to first go to the Government of India or depend on the Supreme Court of India?
No, not at all. It has to go to Government of India when we need budget, for sure. Or if we need a change in a law, amendment in the law, only we have to approach the government, because they only will bring it as
a bill. But they will not bring. They are politicians.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you think Election Commission of India should enjoy and exercise independent authority?
No, well, it is independent, but then law-making power has to be with the Parliament. So, but what has happened is that citizens go to the Supreme Court. Many reforms have come from the Supreme Court because the government has not been sensitive. That is when, for instance, for transparency in election, like how many criminal cases are pending, what is your financial status, this came through a Supreme Court judgment. On a PIL, which is a very good thing. When a PIL is filed, as a Supreme Court asks for our opinion, then we give our opinion for sure in support of these reforms. And many good reforms have come through the Supreme Court.
So, what was the biggest and toughest situation or condition that you came across while you were in the service as Chief Election Commission of India?
Well, conducting election is not a joke anyway. But there are some states which are particularly difficult, and although 80% of election in anywhere in the country is the same, similar, but some ground realities differ in state from state to state. For instance, the Maoist areas have a different law. There's a law and order problem. If you have seen this film Newton,
Yeah.
and people have loved it, and I also saw, and it's very realistic. And when you see that, you'll understand what a complex exercise it is. And but what you're seeing is only just one polling booth. We have thousands of booths where we have similar problems. So those are very special problems. In West Bengal, there is the use of bombs and guns has been very common. In the northeast, Manipur elections are difficult. Kashmir elections are difficult in a different way.
Separatism
Right.
and all that.
Tamil Nadu election is difficult because of too much of money. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh have money power. So we have to deal with the ground realities of all these states separately.
So, what is your opinion on Supreme Court's order and the verdict that we should all stand in cinema halls for 52 seconds when the national anthem is being played? But recently it has.
I think Supreme Court itself realized that that kind of compulsion, this used to be done 30-40 years ago after when we were at war with Pakistan. That is the time to promote patriotism. But general feeling in public opinion that these are things which should not be forced. They come from within. People stand. But the general debate is when you go to see a film, you are scantily dressed and you're in a holiday mood with your feet on the bench, and there suddenly springing up. Probably it was not advisable, and that seems to be the opinion of the other new bench of the Supreme Court. They themselves are seem to be inclined to take it back.
It's just 52 seconds. It's nothing.
No, it may be 52 seconds, but it's the question of something should be left to the people's sentiment, and people normally respect. I don't think, and it was not even the demand. It suddenly it came out of the blue. So probably it was not very, very desirable idea.
So, do you think Election Commission of India presently is facing any kind of tough situation or any problem, in your opinion, and how it can be solved if it is facing any problem?
Well, Election Commission problems are more or less the same always. One is, as they say, people take political pressure. There could be pressure from the government. There will always be an attempt and a desire on the part of the government to put pressure, because they are also a political party, and other political parties also put pressure when they come in delegation. 10 leaders coming.
So was there any kind of pressure on you?
No. Only these usual the delegations can come and one says something, the other says something else. It does create a dilemma in a mind, who is saying right, who is saying wrong. So that is where you have to weigh the pros and cons. And we have to deal with them. And I think the best solution to these problems is giving a correct and fair decision. If you are fair, even if it displeases X party or Y party, government or opposition, it should not matter. You should do what your conscience tells you to do, and what is right, which you can justify to the people, because people are watching. Now, Election Commission is the most respected authority, the body in the country. But when it goes wrong, which occasionally it might, so people immediately raise fingers, don't they?
So has it gone wrong in announcing the election dates of Himachal Pradesh and not Gujarat?
Well, in fact, I wrote on that probably that was a questionable decision, and it would have been better if it did not happen, because it did create a question mark, and anything which puts a question mark on the neutrality of the Election Commission is very bad for the nation, bad for the country. And all of us together, government included, should make sure that Election Commission's reputation is guarded, and it is not put into a situation where it has to feel embarrassed.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the interview. We will be back very soon with another interesting personality on the show. Thank you so much.